What's going on, YouTube? James here, and today I want to talk about the Mikayla Miller situation and all of the new facts that have just recently come to light, and kind of contrast them to the narrative that is being pushed by the mainstream media. So we're going to jump right into it with an article coming from the TB Daily News, and you can see in the title here, emails show Mikayla Miller's guidance counselor ignored warnings about teens' mental health crisis and drug abuse, FaceTime video of previous suicide attempt, and child abuse by her mother. I, of course, will link this down in the description below so that you all can take a look at it on your own. I'm not going to read the entire article because if I did, this video would be way too long. So we're just going to skim through it. I'm going to pull out some key points. And then, like I said, the article will be linked down below for y'all to take a look at if you so desire. So we'll start right here. The article says, Mikayla Miller was suicidal and self-medicating with drugs for weeks before she killed herself on the night of April 17th. Hopkinton High School faculty, the Hopkinton Police Department, and DA Marion Ryan's office are well aware of this and have seen everything you are about to read in this blog. Yet they have remained silent as 3 girls from Hopkinton and 2 boys from North Brookfield have been labeled as the R-word murderers by a mob that includes the state Senate President, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, several state reps, Framingham Mayor Yvonne Spicer, members of the New England Patriots, and millions of others online. They were willing to allow children in their town to be vilified and offered no protection to them because they were afraid to tell the mob the truth out of fear of being labeled by the R-word by Monica Cannon Grant and former Boston City Councilor Tito Jackson. Now, this is something that really aggravates me with the blue check mark mafia, with the woke culture mob that we have, the woke culture mob that we have going on today in this clown world that we're living in, and they ruin people's lives on such a large and high level and scale that people are literally afraid to speak out and stand up for people, even when they know that what they're speaking up for and what they're saying is true and factual and based in facts, and that they're standing up for somebody who is innocent and being vilified for something that they are innocent of. People are afraid to speak out and stand up, speak up and stand up, because they don't want to be thrown into that group. They don't want to be part of the cancel culture that is literally ruining our society. I mean, look at the white cop that saved the young black lady's life. What happened to him because LeBron James decided that he was a villain in the situation? It happens far too often. Gina Carano, another great example. Nobody stood up for her, even though everybody said how great she was. Nobody stood up for her because they don't want the cancel culture to come after them too. And it's sick. It's disgusting that people are so afraid to speak up because of what these people, this woke mob, this blue check mafia has done to our society. Anyway, continuing on. The article continues. We now know that DA Ryan did contact Mikayla's mother the day after she died, and that none of the, quote, suburban white kids have a parent who is a police officer, and at least one of the children is Latino. That was the narrative that was being pushed, that the kids were all white, first of all, and that they were also children of police officers. And that is because this lady used her source, and her source even said that it was third-hand information. And here's the screenshot of that even proves that. The source right here says, I'm getting like third-hand information. So Caitlin Emerson cheated on Mikayla with Wyatt Steffen, Wyatt and Steffen's sister, and then I'm unclear whether Caitlin or Wyatt's sister beat Mikayla up. I'm getting this from a mom of one of Mikayla's friends, but it really is third hand because I don't even know names. So not credible. You know, as far as I know, when it comes to real, true reporting, you're supposed to check and double check, right? You're supposed to double verify, have at least 2 sources before you can throw something out there. But it doesn't stop people nowadays. You know, they get something, they run with it automatically. And if you have to put out a retraction, who cares? Because the retraction is only going to get what, maybe 10% of the views as the original article, so who really cares, right? So the article continues. Caitlin Anderson grew up in North Brookfield, but her family recently moved back to Hopkins, where her parents grew up. She's undergone more pain than any teenager ever should after losing a person who was very special to her for a long time. Caitlin is the ex-girlfriend of Mikayla Miller. There's some pictures of them here together. And this is the woman here, Monica Cannon Grant, who is pushing this this whole narrative of 5 white kids and children of police officers. She was given an award as, you know, the 100 most influential Bostonians, and she held a rally, and she used that rally, of course, to further push this narrative. The article says, at the rally yesterday, Monica Cannon Grant lectured the mostly white crowd in Hopkins to use their, quote, privilege, and instructed them to go home and harass DA Marion Ryan's office with phone calls demanding an independent investigation, whatever that means, rather than going home and, quote, eat your cheese sandwich and say you showed up for the Negroes. The crowd of white people enthusiastically clapped, agreeing that their white skin makes them boring and plain, and thus relegated to eating unseasoned cheese sandwiches. Another part of this crazy world that we live in today is that white people feel guilty and feel like they have to bow down for something that they didn't take part in, something that they didn't do, and they feel like they owe, you know, these other people something, and that they're inferior because of the way that they were born, because of the color of their skin. It's ironic, right, that being woke and being anti-racist is submitting to exactly that, right? It's so ironic that it's just upside down world. Continuing on, so Tito Jackson, another big proponent or big pusher of this narrative, said if she had been white and 5 black kids beat her up and she was found dead the next day, we wouldn't be here 2 weeks after or even 2 days after. We are here demanding justice. Due to Monica's history of inciting violence, many businesses in town either closed or pathetically put up BLM signs, hoping the mob wouldn't come for them if they grew angry. Like many 16-year-olds, Mikayla did not handle the breakup well. She felt lost without Caitlin and turned to drugs and alcohol. Out of anger, she had her friends from Quincy, the city where she grew up, begin to harass Caitlin with spam phone calls. Here are text messages from Mikayla to a mutual friend that the police and DA's office have seen, in which she talks about her drug use of Xanax, mushrooms, pot, and alcohol, and admits to the phone calls. So the important parts of these, at least for this quick run through that I'm doing here. Let's see. So here's the talk about the Xanax right here. Xans. I agree, but I don't feel like being home and sober. I'm not going to do Xans. I'm just going to smoke. I really miss her, and getting effed up is the only thing helping right now. I'm doing Shroom Saturday. That's going to hit. I agree, but I don't feel like being home and sober. I know you don't care, but I just am stuck feeding me ish. I don't want to be, depends on alcohol and weed, but it's all that helps. So you can see this young woman was clearly not in a good state of mind. She felt like she only had drugs and alcohol to turn to make herself feel better. She clearly felt like she didn't have anybody that she could turn to. At least anybody that would make a difference, so she relied on other things. I'm sure there's plenty of people that can relate to that, but it just, again, it shows her frame of mind in all of this, right? Mikayla's father even pulled his own off switch 7 years ago, and it severely impacted her mental health. Mikayla and her mother, Calvina, did not have the best relationship, despite the way Calvina made it seem on social media. The mother said, and quote, you know the old saying, 2 peas in a pod, that was us. My daughter was great. Funny, loving, caring, and loved me to death. We had a bond that is indescribable. Calvina's boyfriend lives in Chicago, and she frequently flies there for long periods of time, leaving Mikayla alone in their $3,800 a month condo in Hopkinton, often with no food. As a result, Mikayla relied on others for food and company, including her girlfriend's parents, who brought her groceries on several occasions. So obviously this mother, for one, isn't struggling financially. $3,800 a month for the condo alone. That proves her station in life, right? So the fact that she's leaving her child at home with no money and no groceries is just a lack of caring. I guarantee you that that didn't help her daughter, who's already feeling broken and alone. Her father left her on, terrible circumstances, and now her mother's abandoning her for another man that's not her father. And I guarantee you that that young child, she felt abandoned. I promise you that. In March of 2020, there was an incident at Mikayla's home, which Caitlin witnessed. Calvina allegedly assaulted her daughter, giving her a black eye, and the police were called. So the mother was, at least in this instance, physically abusive, left her daughter with a black eye. So their relationship was definitely tumultuous, to say the least. After they broke up, Caitlin attempted to remain friends with Mikayla, but Mikayla was not handling it well and was clearly going through a mental health crisis. Caitlin did the right thing and alerted Mikayla's guidance counselor, Mikayla Miller, via email, since her mother was in Chicago visiting her boyfriend. Surprise, surprise. This is the message that the ex-girlfriend sent. Hi, Miss Murray. I know this is late and random, but I'm really worried about Mikayla Miller, and I don't know who else she could talk to. I know that you're her guidance counselor, but I think she really needs someone to talk to. She's been crying and having panic attacks all weekend, and she normally never does. I'm sorry this email is really late. Here's some pictures of the guidance counselor. The ex-girlfriend went on to say, I don't trust her alone with herself, and I'm scared she might hurt herself. She tore up her room, and she's screaming and yelling. This child was clearly crying, screaming out for help, and the one person in her life who should have been there for her was in Chicago with her boyfriend. Kaylee Murray wrote back to Caitlin and promised she would check in on her. Hi, Caitlin. Thanks so much for reaching out. I'll definitely check in on Mikayla. Would it be okay if I let her know you reached out to me? If not, I understand. It just may be helpful for the conversation if I can let her know why I'm checking. Miss Kylie Murray, she, her, hers. If Miss Murray was so concerned for the mental well-being of the children under her care as she was for making sure her pronouns were included in her email signature, perhaps Mikayla would be alive today. Instead, they did almost nothing to resolve this. Miss Murray, the Hopkinton Police Department, the DA's office, and Calvina have all seen these emails. They are all well aware that Mikayla was in the midst of a mental health crisis, and yet they remain silent as a mob of millions blame her death on other children in the town. They remain silent as one of the most influential congresswomen in Washington demanded an independent investigation into what they know as a fact was a suicide. The article continues. Mikayla was not found to, I think that's supposed to say, was not found tied to a tree as some have suggested. They found her with one end of a belt tied to a small tree for leverage with another around her neck. To flip your off switch in this manner, you lean forward and choke yourself out. I know what this feels like because I tried the same thing with an extension cord 3 months ago. That's not me saying that, that's the person who wrote this article, obviously. It's painful and requires the person to be extremely dedicated to flipping their off switch, as they have to continue to deny themselves the ability to breathe. I can only imagine how alone and helpless Mikayla felt to reach this horrible place mentally. After the emails were sent and the school did next to nothing to help Mikayla, the troubled teen FaceTimed Caitlin and attempted to flip her off switch with the very same belt, which Caitlin identified to police when she was questioned. It is notable that this was the exact method Mikayla used to flip her off switch on April 17th. There is no recording of this, and it was only witnessed by Caitlin, but she has made the authorities aware of it. Yet the Hopkinton police remain silent as a child in their town is being falsely labeled as a bad person. Consequently, Caitlin has been harassed and bullied at school while being accused by classmates of taking part in Mikayla's passing. These text messages are between Caitlin and her mother and include screenshots of text messages Caitlin sent Mikayla's aunt expressing her concern about Mikayla's mental health. Mikayla's aunt never returned her messages. Look, I mean, these messages I'm so sick of people asking if she, this is why I'm going into school tomorrow and having a chat with the principal and Officer Powers myself. Do you need me to come? I don't have to say a word, just moral support. I reached out to her guidance counselor directly, and she didn't do ish about it. She never talked to her or anything like I asked her to. I know you told me about this, and I just got off with the school. They called trying to cover their butts because they never did anything about it. I contacted her aunt that night too, and she never got back to me and never told her mom. There's screenshots of when she reached out to the aunt. So this girl, her ex-girlfriend, did everything that she's supposed to do. She did all the right things. She reached out to family. She reached out to the guidance counselor. Nobody helped this poor girl. Nobody. The only person that was trying to help was the ex-girlfriend, who unfortunately Mikayla wanted nothing to do with because the trauma of the breakup. But she was trying to get this person help, and everybody that's supposed to do something turned their backs. They ignored it. They hoped it would go away, and they did nothing. And now, rather than owning up to it and fessing up to it, they're turning it into another black versus white, another us versus them, another situation that they can use to divide us. And it's pathetic. It's sick that they keep using these poor kids and their deaths to cause more harm to this country and divide us even further. This is what they want. Us people divided are harder to control. They want us fighting each other, so we're not fighting them. If we're paying attention to this, we're not paying attention to what they're doing. This is planned. This is what's... Anyway, this poor girl needed help, and nobody helped her. The ones that are paid to help didn't help. Her family didn't help, and it's sad. So just outside of normal being a teenager, let's not forget that this young lady was part of the LGBTQ community, and I wanted to bring this article to light as well. I'm just going to read a very short part of it, and I will link this down in the description below as well, but just to, kind of re-emphasize the whole mental health situation that's tied to this thing, this situation. This survey was done back almost exactly a year ago. July 15th of 2020 is when the article was written. It says, largest survey of transgender and non-binary youth says more than half seriously considered suicide. In its second annual national survey on LGBTQ youth mental health, the Trevor Project uncovered some alarming information about gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, and other gender non-conforming young Americans. 48% of this group said that in the last 12 months, they engaged in self-harm. That number rose to 60% for trans and non-binary youth. Even more worrisome, 40% of those surveyed reported having seriously considered attempting suicide during that period. Of the young people who identified as trans or non-binary, more than half said they strongly considered flipping their off switch. That's sad. But those numbers are just in relation to her sexual identity crisis that she was dealing with, that she was trying to live through, that she was trying to understand. And then you add on top of that the fact that she had a mother who, at least on one incident, was physically abusive. If she was physically abusive, I can almost guarantee you she was verbally abusive as well on top of that. We know that she was abandoning her on multiple occasions and leaving her without money or food. We know that she went through a very recent breakup that was very traumatic to her. So all of these things keep piling on top for this poor young lady, and nobody steps up to help her. Nobody. And this is what the mainstream media is using as another us versus them, instead of paying attention to the mental health crisis in this country and paying attention to the mental health issues that caused this young lady to lose her life, and actually putting efforts to somewhere where we could make a real difference. We're instead making it about race. It's pathetic. Anyways, as I said, I will link both of these articles down below. I really hope that you'll take a look at both of them. Please don't take my word for it. Definitely do not listen to the mainstream media. Do your own research. Research is knowledge, and knowledge is power. And I promise you, you're going to need that knowledge to survive the clown world that we're in today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope I will see you again next time. Have a great day.